I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume, so I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. We continue in the Gospels. Christ is still centering his ministry in the Capernaum area on the west coast of the Sea of Galilee. He does travel around a bit in the Galilean area. We read many miracles, many sermons, many parables. Our last few readings, we read he healed the daughter of the Canaanite woman. And lastly, we read the feeding of the 4,000, the second miracle in which he multiplied the food. That is where we left it off. So now we continue on, and we're going to read an account that is shared in both, again, Matthew and Mark. Now, in my last video, I did say it would be in Luke as well, but I made an error there, and the portion I was going to read in Luke, I will be making into a separate video. So we will here read just in Matthew and Mark. In this video, we have a Joseph Smith translation. Now, what the Joseph Smith translation is, this is a translation or correction done by Joseph Smith to restore those passages that have been lost or corrupted over the years. So let us read in Matthew first. Matthew chapter 16, verses 1 through 12. The Pharisees also with the Sadducees came, and tempting desired him that he would shew them a sign from heaven. He answered and said unto them, When it is evening, ye say, It will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites! Ye can discern the face of the sky, but can ye not discern the signs of the times? A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it but the sign of the prophet Jonas. And he left them and departed. This is the second time that Christ has invoked the sign of Jonas, being Jonah the prophet. Jonah was 3 days in the belly of a whale. Christ will be 3 days in the earth. That's the only sign he's giving them. But notice what he's saying here. They say they want a sign of his messiahship. Basically, if we're going to accept you as the Messiah, you have to show us a sign. And he's saying that there are signs all over. You can discern the sky. That is, I believe, the origin of the one saying, red sky at night, sailors delight, red sky in morning, sailor take warning. That's the origin right there. And he's saying you can discern the skies. You can read the signs of nature, but you can't read the signs of the times. You can't read all the miracles that have been happening, all the things that have already been done that show you that I am the Messiah, that I am the Son of God. All the signs have been given. The prophecies of the prophets have been fulfilled before your eyes, and you cannot see them. And in some ways, I feel the same thing is happening in these last days. The signs of the times are all around us. And yet there are so many people who want to deny and say, oh, it's not going to happen in my lifetime. It's going to happen much later. It's not going to happen now. But the signs are here. Do we have the spiritual sight to see them? Or are we blind like the Pharisees were? Now also note that now we also have a reference to the Sadducees. This is a different religious sect among the Jews. The Pharisees were kind of the sect of the working class. The Sadducees are the priestly class. It is believed that the name Sadducees is derived from the name of Zadok, who was one of the more famous high priests in the history of Israel. And so the idea is that these are the descendants, or they are united with the family of Zadok, and thus are called Sadducees. And so we have this working class sect, and now the priestly sect, and they're kind of combining together to contend with Christ. But let us move on, verse 5. And when his disciples were come to the other side, they had forgotten to take bread. Then Jesus said unto them, Take heed, and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have taken no bread. Which when Jesus perceived, he said unto them, O ye of little faith, why reason ye among yourselves, because ye have brought no bread? Do ye not yet understand, neither remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000, and how many baskets ye took up? Neither the 7 loaves of the 4,000, and how many baskets ye took up? How is it that ye do not understand that I spake it not to you concerning bread, that ye should beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees? Then understood they how that he bade them not beware of leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Now, I like this one. This is the apostles forget to bring bread. And when Christ speaks in this metaphor of the leaven of the Pharisees, they think he's chastising them for not bringing food. But then he chastised them out. Don't you remember that I created food? The 5 loaves feeding 5,000, the 7 loaves feeding 4,000? Do you really think I am talking about literal food here? And that's when they understand he's speaking metaphorically, and now it's starting to click in their minds. See, the apostles didn't start out having a perfect knowledge of the gospel and understanding everything. They are learning. They are progressing just like we do. And we can see in this moment the wheels in their head are starting to turn. Things are clicking. They are understanding. And they are now saying, when we hear Christ speak, we can't take it. We can't just look at the literal meaning of what he's saying. We've got to understand the metaphor. We've got to understand the parable that he's using. Because remember, Christ only teaches in parables. I like seeing the wheels in the apostles' head. Now, on that point of doctrine as leaven, remember we had the parable of the woman who divided leaven into 3 lumps till the whole was leavened. And Joseph Smith said this was a prophecy or parable about the 3 witnesses and the restoration. But leaven, just like good leaven, the good leaven of the gospel, can fill the church and lift everybody up. Bad leaven of false doctrine can depress everything, can rot everything. And that's what Christ is talking about. Don't let the false doctrine in. Beware of those who teach false doctrine. It's a warning we need in the modern day. But let us look at the Joseph Smith translation here. In verse 1, instead of just "and tempting desired him," it's "and tempting Jesus desired him." Makes more sense that way. Verse 2 and 3 are kind of rewritten. They now say, "And he answered and said unto them, When it is evening, ye say, The weather is fair. And in the morning ye say, The weather is foul today. For the sky is red and lowering. O hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky, but you cannot tell the signs of the times." Now in this there's no mention of the red sky at night. But in the second manuscript of the Joseph Smith translation, the red sky at night is not removed. So it's interesting. In verse 7, instead of "it is because we have taken no bread," it is corrected, "he said this because we have taken no bread." Just a minor clarification, nothing real earth-shattering there. But 8, this is interesting. 8 in the Joseph Smith translation reads, "And when they reasoned among themselves, Jesus perceived it. And he said unto them, O ye of little faith." Now that is, it's again just a clarification, just interesting. And then finally verse 11 it says, "Ye do not understand that I spake it not to you concerning bread." We have the correction, "Ye do not understand that I spake not unto you concerning bread." Just makes the passage a little clearer, a little easier to read. So now let us read in Mark. This is Mark chapter 8, 10 through 21. "And straightway he departed into a ship with his disciples, and came into the parts of Dalmanutha. And the Pharisees came forth, and began to question with him, seeking of him a sign from heaven, tempting him. And he sighed deeply in his spirit, and saith, Why doth this generation seek after a sign? Verily I say unto you, there shall no sign be given unto this generation. And he left them, and entering into the ship, again departed to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, neither had they in the ship with them more than 1 loaf. And he charged them, saying, Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, and of the leaven of Herod. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have no bread. And when Jesus knew it, he saith unto them, Why reason ye, because ye have no bread? Perceive ye not yet, neither understand? Have ye your heart yet hardened? Having eyes, see ye not? And having ears, hear ye not? And do ye not remember, when I brake the 5 loaves among the 5,000, how many baskets full of fragments took ye up? They say unto him, 12. And when the 7 among 4,000, how many baskets full of fragments took ye up? And they said, 7. And he said unto them, How is it that ye do not understand? The contention with the Pharisees is very much abbreviated here. He makes no mention of the red sky, and he does not give the sign of Jonas. But there's nothing really new here, it's just a shortened version. The leaven of the Pharisees and this discussion with the disciples is greatly expanded in its wording, but doesn't give any new information. Actually has less information in that it doesn't tell us that the apostles began to understand. The only there's the one point of new information in that they had 1 loaf of bread with them, and that was it. They didn't have any more. That's the only detail that we are given here that was not mentioned in Matthew. But the rebuke of Christ is given in a much different way. It's a little bit longer, and we see Christ's passion coming out, his own compassion for the apostles, but it's kind of an exasperation with them. where he's not just saying, don't you remember the loaves of the fish? He's questioning them. He's trying to get them to think and understand. How many loaves did you take up? How many fragments? How many baskets? Think. So we're not told that they did start understanding. We get this much more human side of Christ again, where he is actually reasoning with his apostles and trying to draw out of them the thought processes that they need. It's actually a very nice, it's a very nice telling of this story. Gives us a little bit more insight into Christ's relationship and how he taught the apostles. But now let us quickly look at the Joseph Smith translation here in Mark. In verse 10, instead of parts of Dalmutha, it's ports of Dalmutha. And this is the thing that I did forget to mention, that in Matthew it says they're going to the town of Magdala. In Mark now it says they go to Dalmutha. Now, we don't really know what Dalmutha is. It is possible that it is just another name for Magdala, or is a village in the region of Magdala. Most likely, I think it's most likely a village in that same region. But moving on, in verse 12, of course we change saith to said, but then at the end we have this addition, no sign be given unto this generation, save the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so likewise shall the Son of Man be buried in the bowels of the earth. So rather than giving no sign, he again, like Matthew, gives the sign of Jonas, and he also explains what that sign is. That is an interesting one. He kind of, again, is unifying the narrative of the Gospels. Now in verse 13 it says, entering into the ship again, departed, and in the Joseph Smith translation it's he departed. In verse 14, where it says, now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, it's now the multitude had forgotten to take bread. In verse 15, instead of, and of the leaven of Herod, it's just, and the leaven of Herod. In verse 16, instead of, it is because we have no bread, it is, he hath said this, because, again, just like we had in Matthew. But verse 17, we have this rewriting again, and when they said this among themselves, Jesus knew it, and he said unto them, why reason ye because ye have no bread? Perceive ye not yet? Neither understand ye? Are your hearts yet hardened? So again, makes it more similar to what Matthew was. In verse 19, we have this addition. It says, now, when I break the 5 loaves among the 5,000 instead of just among 5,000. So, and the same thing in verse 20, among the 4,000. And that's it. That is all of our Joseph Smith translations for Mark here. So, again, not much new here, but I do like the way Mark explains the chastising of Christ, when Christ chastises his disciples here. I like Mark's rendering of it a little better. Anyways, that will be it for this video, and I will see you in Luke next. See you there.